Hey guys, and welcome to Functional Print Friday. So on the workbench this week I have got what was once the lid of a popcorn container. And as you can probably guess by the hole in the center here and this cracking, this thing hasn't served its original purpose for a while. No, in fact, this lid was a temporary fix to a problem I was trying to solve about 7 years ago. And I guess it was a good enough solution that I left it in place and didn't revisit it, though I did, to be fair, I did actually try and revisit this and fix it better about 2 years ago, but we'll get to that. This actually covers the vent of it. Well, you know what, let's just go look at it. Okay, so I popped it back in place here, and you can see it's held in place with this big knob here, which has like a threaded rod on it. And it goes up, you know, kind of against this outer rim. It's not big enough, it's close to being big enough, but air does get around the edges and certainly through these cracks, and it's clear so we can actually see bugs through it that make their way through this vent. So we got to come up with a better solution. All right, back here at the workbench, what did I mean by I tried to solve this 2 years ago? Well, if you haven't guessed yet, this thing is just bigger than I can print. And for some reason, when I looked at this and eyeballed it, it looked like something I could print. It looked, oh yeah, that'll definitely fit on the bed, is I'm sure what I thought at the time. And then I even went all the way through taking the measurements of the grill and designing it before realizing that it's just simply too big. This already is too small. It doesn't quite go over that last part of the grill. And this is 220 millimeters, it looks like. The widest I can print in a full circle on the Prusa Mark 3S is 210 millimeters. So I guess, you know, it's not that it's that much bigger than I can print, and I can print, I think, 250 in the one direction, but not in a full circle. So there's just no way I was going to be able to print this. However, the bamboo printers, both of the bamboo printers I have, will do 10 by 10 by 10, and you can see we're 256 by 256 by 256, and you can see we are well within that limit. So it's time to revisit this. So let's go take a look at the design that I made a couple of years ago and see if it's still something we want to go with and see if we can get this fixed. All right, and here is the design that I had originally come up with for this. And I think this will work as is. You can see this is the face that would be on the inside, because we need this edge to go around sort of the edge of that grill to make good contact. And then I think I had designed this rise here so that it bottoms out against that part of the grill rather than squeezing the whole fixture in and putting pressure on it. The thing is, it's boring. Just any other way to put it. I know this is a functional printing channel, and you know, I think this would be functional, but it's gonna look ugly. You know, I mean, we just got this big face here, and yeah, we'll get the texture on it if we use the textured sheet on the bamboo P1S or X1C, but I think it's still just going to be just too much of a big chunk of plastic. So I have an idea of how we can fix this, and we're not actually going to change the design at all. Let's actually go over to the slicer and see if we can pull off what I'm thinking. Okay, so here we are in Bamboo Studio. I've imported the STL and we've got it down on the build plate, and you know, if we just hit the print button, I think this guy would print just fine. We've got tons of contact area with the build surface. This is a 45-degree bevel here. You know, we'd at least end up with the texture of the textured bed if we use the textured sheet here. I think this guy would print just fine. But again, I want to do something a bit more interesting, and I think we can do that without actually changing this design at all. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, let's slice this and first take a look at the different components we have of this print. Okay, so down here on the bottom of the print, we have solid layers first. And we come up and we have infill, grid infill in this case. And then we come back up to solid layers as we hit the top layers of this print. Well, nobody said we have to have bottom solid layers, right? So what if we turn those off? Let's just make those 0. Slice it again. Okay, now notice we have no solid layers on the bottom. We just go right into infill, and then we have, oops, grabbing the wrong one. And then we go into solid layers on the top. So if we flip this guy over, that is actually what our print would look like. We'd have solid edges here where the edge of the print is, not this solid piece here, that's actually our brim. But if we ignored the brim, we'd have a little solid edge here and then a whole bunch of visible infill, and then we'd see the underside of the top layer. Well, I don't know, that might be cool, but it's just a grid. Grid infill doesn't usually print that clean anyway. I don't know that it's going to be that interesting. Now, I mean, you know, we could do some stuff with colors here. Let's see, can we show color in this view? There we go. So I turned on filament. So if let's take a step back. Let's go back to prepare, select our object, and let's see, this is like a copper color I've got in the AMS. If we go to fill, that's too much. We don't need it all the way up at the side. Let's see, what if we set our smart fill angle all the way down? Oh yeah, there we go. Okay, so in theory now, that would just be this top surface, what we would see through the infill. Let's try that. Let's slice it. Oh, serious warning, conflicts of G-code path. Oh, I see. We've got our purge block there right in the way. Well, I think we can fix that. Just drag it out of the way. And we can move this guy over a little bit. All right, let's slice that again. Okay, I think we've eliminated our serious G-code problems. Oh, and look at that. So yeah, I mean, you know, grid infill is not that exciting. I don't know if we can turn off the view of the build plate. I don't think we can. Let's see. View. Yeah, if there's a way to turn off the build plate in the view, I don't know how to do that. Let me know down in the comments if you guys know how to turn the build plate off so that we didn't even see the square grid of the build plate. Let me know. But you know, I think we can just kind of imagine that that square grid's not there, and we can see the smaller square grid through there. And that might actually be kind of an interesting effect. But check this out. What if instead of grid, look at all these options that we have in here. What if we did Archimedean chords? Let's try that. Okay, come on, that looks pretty cool. And look at that, as we tilt it, we get kind of an effect there, because at an angle, we can't see the copper color all the way through there, but we can as it flattens out. So I think that's going to have a really neat look to it. Let's see, that is at 20% infill. Let's do 25%. Okay, that's even better. I think that's going to have sort of that same effect, but even cooler. And because these are close enough together, or closer together, hopefully they're close enough together that we can print fairly solid infill right on top. Because if our infill turns into a sagging mess, and when I say our infill, I mean our solid infill up here, we're going to lose this effect entirely. So let's just kind of go down through the layers, see how that looks. I mean, that it looks like it's going to work. I do see a couple oddities there, like why is it only adding that one center section there as we work our way up? But yeah, I think that'll work. I think at this point, really it's time to just hit the print button and see what happens. Let's give it a go. All right, while we're waiting for that print, there's something I've been meaning to try. This is a print that I did a couple weeks ago. I had it set to grid infill, and I had the infill percentage set way too high, and I ended up with a lot of over extrusion on the top here. This is not a piece I would use as is, but it otherwise is a good part. I'm in the milling machine, and I'm gonna try and use a boring head as sort of a fly cutter to try and face off the top of this. This is a bad idea for a number of reasons. The top ones probably being, I have a very small point of contact on this surface, so you already don't get a good grip on plastic against a steel vise. So this guy's probably going to shift. It's also not really down too tight against my parallels down here because it's not a perfectly smooth surface. And this is carbide tooling, and in my experience, you really want to use high-speed steel tooling at a slow speed on plastics, particularly PLA. But you know what? I'm compelled to try anyway because this part's already scrap. So why not? Well, I think we're going to have to call this both simultaneously a failure and a victory because this worked. The problem is we don't have, because this was over extruding, we don't have any spot here in the Z that is a good solid infill. The places where it is, like if we look at the lines on the outside, there's 3 outlines on this print. They look incredibly good. And the places where the infill did happen to print solid look really good. And this guy is extremely smooth now. So this works. I just don't think we're going to be able to save this print. There's, you know, the surface finish looks abysmal here where we're hitting gaps in the material. Where it was solid though, it's genuinely really good. Okay, well, that's a result. It's not a great result. If we pretend that this didn't happen over here, this section here where it looks like it just either wasn't well bonded to the build plate or maybe there was just something that was unsupported and the nozzle kind of pulled that away. I'm not sure. But if we look at the rest of this, it's pretty darn cool. It is a really neat look seeing the that copper colored filament through here. And as we turn this guy at different angles, you get all sorts of different effects from it, which is exactly what I was looking for. It just, you know, it kind of takes this from an extremely boring object in design and makes it into something much more interesting without trying to print it like this way to have interesting features up top and having the whole bottom covered with supports. And you can see the even the back part looks pretty cool being printed in the white and the copper. It's actually a cooler color combo than I was anticipating. But you can see there's actually a couple spots here where we had some sort of issue with the print. I'm thinking we roll the dice and just try this again. Yeah, that didn't go great. I don't regret trying it again, but yeah, the first one looks way better than this. I don't think this is going to cover that up too well. I actually got really lucky. I had run out while this was printing, and I got a message from the Handy app that the tool head cover had fallen off. And sure enough, the tool head cover had fallen off, but it doesn't appear to have done any damage. The tool head itself doesn't look like it was bent. Everything looks good. So I think I dodged a bullet on that one, but I don't want to try this again. This looks like, based on the width or how tall each one of these is, that it got up to that same point again, that the other one had those defects. If we look, we can see these are pretty much full height. It looks like it just got to some transition and failed here, and then also a little bit of a failure here. So I think we need to adjust our approach a little bit. Okay, I think I might have the solution. So I think part of the problem is we're trying to print that grid, or not the grid, sorry, that spiral pattern around the entire thing. And really, we don't need it around the entire thing. Like, we don't need it in the center section here. We don't need it all the way out here to the edge. We really only need it in this section. So you can see I've got a couple different components here now. What I've done is I cut this up into 3 different pieces. And if I hide this guy, and I hide this guy, and we turn off our hidden geometry, you can see now we've got just a central disc here. And I think what we can do in Bambu Studio, I haven't actually gone in and played with it yet, but I think what we can do is just have separate parameters for these 3 unique pieces. So we can have we can actually turn on bottom layers and normal sparse infill for that center section. Here, I'll unhide everything again. So we'll have normal infill and a normal solid bottom for this piece and this piece, but this center disc here, we can have our sort of, you know, no bottom layer special settings on, and I think achieve the same effect with much lower risk on printing. So let's pull this into Bambu Studio. Okay, so here we are back in Bambu Studio, and I have imported those STLs as different pieces. So we can click through each one of these. You can see the different pieces, and what we can do is we can now do separate settings for each. So what I've done is for the main body, which is that disc piece here, I set the bottom shell layers to 0, and I set the infill pattern to our spiral pattern. And then for the center and the outer ring, I have basically normal settings on these guys. There's 5 bottom shell layers, and we have grid infill, and same thing for the outer ring. We have grid infill and 5 layers. So let's slice this now and see what that looks like. Okay, that is looking good. We're solid here, we're solid at the edge. I mean, part of that is our brim, but I can see we're solid here even at just the edge of this. And it's only that part that we want the effect on that we have, sort of that spiral pattern. If I zoom in here, you guys can probably see a little better. So let's just do kind of a sanity check and see what that slicing looks like. Okay, we're working our way up. This is good, we're solid. What is going on there? Okay, see that? It prints exactly as I'd expect up to like layer 9, and then on layer 10 it just starts printing like another spiral section mid-air. It's okay over here, but over here it's just dropping it in mid-air. What do we look like up here? Okay, it's kind of doing the same thing here, but it's like it's doing a continuation of an existing segment. So I have a feeling the inside here is probably going to be okay. Although it does kind of look like it's just floating in outer space, sort of up on this end, if you can see in this region. Yeah, I have a higher faith that the center is going to be okay. I don't have a great faith that this is going to work down here. I fear, yeah, so if we come into this view, you can see what's going to happen here. It's getting all the way to this height, and then all of a sudden it's just laying down plastic like mid-air. I don't think that's going to work. Let me mess with the settings here and see if I can figure out what's causing that. All right, I have been through just about every setting in this slicer, actually probably every setting in this slicer at this point, and I can't completely get rid of it. I did turn on wall loops for that center section. I had, in addition to having the bottom layers turned off, I had wall loops turned off as well, since we just, we don't need it. If I turn that on, it gets a little bit better, but it still does it. And there's still some sections that really look like we're just, yeah, like see there, it's still just putting plastic in midair. I can't completely eliminate it, although I did, I think, make it better. I don't know that it's actually close enough to another line. Now, see, it's, I mean, we're zoomed way in, that's better. Yeah, I don't have high hopes that this is going to work, but I've exhausted settings I can try. I went in here, I mean, just for reference, I don't want to discourage you guys from looking, because if you can find out how to do this, I think this is a really cool effect. But I have been through everything in here that sounds like it could remotely do with what the slicer is generating for G-code when it transitions from infill to solid surfaces or edges. I tried adjusting this. I tried several different iterations of wall loops. Wall loops does change the distance away that is, but I couldn't. I tried everything from, I think, 1 wall loop to up to 15, and it definitely, like, as you cross the threshold, it gets better and worse. I think there's just something weird with the slicer about how it generates this spiral pattern, and then where it tries to attach to infill. I think there's probably a subroutine in there that says, okay, well, the infill ends here, at some coordinate, and so we can just attach to that and start printing our edge or the layer above it or whatever. And that's just not the case with spiral infill, because you end up, unless we set this to a really high percentage, you end up with sections where there's just nothing. Like here, there's this gap here, and I think it thinks that there's something there to attach to it, and there's just not. So I'm done messing with it. I think we're going to give it a go. I think this has a much higher likelihood of succeeding because of the solid areas that we have, and that we'll get good attachment to these solid areas for that spiral. So let's give it a go. While that other print's running, I also wanted to show you guys, so my Mark III right now is running one of my stacking parts trays, and this is a video I did a while ago, so a lot of you guys that are newer on the channel might not have seen it, but these stacking parts trays use only 22 grams of filament, and I know if I have at least one wrap of filament across the bottom of the spool, that's usually around like 25 milligrams, so if I have at least one full wrap on the bottom of the spool, I know I can get one of these stacking parts trays out, and I don't waste filament. So I'll link that down below. It's a great way to finish up just sort of what's left on your spools. All right, guys. I think we're going to have to throw in the towel on this approach. Even with tweaking this to try and eliminate that just sort of floating material up at the height of where these stop and this solid layer starts from the other side, it still failed, and it failed in two different spots. This looks really good now. This looks exactly like the slicer led me to believe it was going to print. We can see the start of that spiral there, and it spirals out. And I think the spiral was fine in this area. I think what happened is we got out to this area here, and that plastic was just floating in midair, probably got dragged across, you know, and hardened on top of our spiral here, and then the nozzle hit it and just knocked those off the bed and turned it into a big mess. So as much as I would like to see this work with this spiral infill, I think we're going to have to try something else. I might revisit this at a future date, and if you guys have any ideas down in the comments below of something I can tweak in the slicer to get this to work, I'd love to see it. The problem is I think the slicer, it just expects that we have more intersecting surfaces on this infill that can attach to. And again, I don't know what we can tweak to fix it, but what I'm thinking we do is let's do the same thing, but do honeycomb infill. It's going to give us a completely different look, but I think it should still be a much more interesting look with the white and seeing the copper through it. So let's give that a shot. If you guys are wondering if I remembered that we're picking 3 winners this week for boards for the Ryden power supply case that we did last week, I did not forget. The power supplies are here. I don't know why this one shipped in a box and these 2 shipped in bags, but I did open this up. All 3 of these are the same. So while we're waiting for the honeycomb one to print, let's go pick 3 winners. Okay, so I've gone to the same site here that I've used in the past to pick winners for these giveaways. And I've got the video URL plugged in. I turned on filter duplicate users, so each person is only entered once, even if you left a bunch of comments. And it looks like we'd have to splurge for premium to pick more than 1 person at a time, but that's fine. We can click all the buttons 3 times. And I already solved the CAPTCHA here and hit the get YouTube comments, and it looks like there are 26 people entered to win. So that's pretty good odds because we're giving 3 of these away. So it's better than 1 in 10. One thing I didn't mention last week, so I said I would cover the cost of buying the boards. I already did that. They're here. You saw them on the workbench. I'll cover the cost of shipping them as well within the continental US. If you're international, I'll cover the first $5 US shipping, but some countries end up being incredibly expensive to ship to, and it's just not practical. The shipping could cost 2 or 3 times as much as the board. So if you are international and it is exceptionally expensive to ship it to you, maybe we'll just work something out where I might even be able to just buy it directly on Amazon and have it shipped to you if you have like a local Amazon that ships. But we'll figure it out. So, you know, don't be deterred. If I pick you and you're not in the continental US, still reach out to me and let's just see what we can figure out. I don't want to spend, you know, $45 or $50 to, you know, ship a $15 part to you either. So we'll figure it out. All right, without further ado, let's pick 3 winners. So I think all we have to do is hit start. All right, Rest in Pizza. You are our first winner. Love the design of the feet on this. I also appreciate your attention to detail and small accents in the design that take this to the next level. Thank you. So just hang out. I'll tell you guys all how to contact me and actually claim your boards, but Rest in Pizza, you are our first winner. So let's pick 2 more. W.C. Grant. Enjoyed the attention to detail on your 3D design. The time and effort really paid off in an off-the-shelf professional looking case. Thank you. Thank you so much. And you are our second winner, W.C. Grant. So again, just hang out. I'll tell you guys all how to actually contact me, and I can see, oh good, it's actually keeping track of who we picked. So it makes it easy. Let's pick a third one. Greg R. Burnett. I like the pretty colors on the screen. I'll take it. Said I wasn't going to be picky, and you said something you liked, so I will take it. Greg, you are our third winner. So W.C. Grant, Reston Pizza, and Greg Burnett, you guys are the winners of the giveaway for those boards. So here's what you're going to do. You are going to come over to my website, fpfdesigns.com, and that is linked right in the description of this video. In fact, it's actually right at the top of the description in all my videos. And by the way, this is where you come to get the STLs for any of these designs. So for example, if you actually want to build one of these power supply cases, you would just come here and there's an STL download right here. And just as a reminder, the STLs for everything that we do on this channel are available for free. You just can't use them commercially. So you can't take these STLs, print these power supply cases out and like sell them on Etsy. You can't sell the STLs, you can't sell the prints that you make from the STLs, and you can't remix it and sell the design. You can remix it on your own for your own use, but you can't, remix it, make a small change, and then print it and sell it. That doesn't get you around that. There's also links in here to all the stuff if you want to buy the pieces to, to make it just like I did. But if we go back, if you scroll all the way down, there is a contact FPF. You're going to click that, and you are going to complete this small contact form, hit the send message, and that is going to send me an email message. Now, I know what you're thinking. Anybody could come in here and do this and say that they are you. Don't worry. What I'm going to have you do once you message me is I'm going to email you back, and I'm going to give you something unique that I want you to place into a reply to your comment on YouTube. And then that'll confirm that you're actually you and not just someone claiming to be you. So just reach out to me and we'll work out the rest. All right, let's get back to the print. All right, well, it's not the almost good, the not almost good, and the spaghetti edition, but honestly, this looks pretty good. I wish we could have made the spiral work, but the honeycomb actually looks really cool too. You don't get quite that cool effect when you tilt it, but it is a neat effect just seeing the copper color through the honeycomb. And side note, I'm really liking the gold and the white together. This is a great color combination. I'll link both of these filaments below. This shade of white and the copper, I don't know, it just works really well. Like I want to make something else in this color combination. So, all right, let's go see if this guy fits. So here is our ugly vent over top of the range, which is just out of your view down here. And let's first just hold this guy up here. This is the one that almost worked. And you can see the kind of neat effect we get with that. It's a shame that we couldn't make this one work. This is still my favorite from an appearance perspective. But here is our honeycomb one, and I think that is going to look good up there too. So let me get this knob off of here, and we'll see how it actually fits. By the way, this knob actually holds the grill on as well, although the grill I think is kind of stuck to the wall. I don't think it's going to stay up there on its own. I don't think this thing ever came with a cover, which I don't get. It's almost like there's a part of it missing, because with nothing here, I can actually feel air flowing through this guy, and you can probably see like, bug guts and stuff up on here as well. So this thing's really got to be covered. And that fits over that outside rim really nicely. Yeah, and that tightens on really snug. Let me pull you out of the tripod. Yeah, that looks really good, and most importantly, it makes a really, really tight fit. That popcorn container lid that I had on here never really made a good seal. In addition to those cracks that were in it, it also didn't contact around the outside part of this grill. It kind of sat against the outer face of that outermost ring, and so it just didn't make a good seal. This seals on here really, really nice. I don't feel any air coming through here at all, and actually that rounded corner that I had on the inside of this top piece is mating against the beveled edge or the rounded corner up here as well. So they're genuinely making a really good seal. And you know, again, I really wish we could have made this one work. That is definitely a cooler look, at least to me. But the honeycomb looks good too. And from a distance, it appears, you see all of the sort of shadows there from the honeycomb. Like it also does look, it looks good. It's just not what I set out to make, so. All right, guys, as always, thanks for hanging out in the shop with me for this week's print. If you happen to have this same vent fan, I'll see if I can dig up the model number on this. Maybe if I take this back off and take off this grill, there's a model number in here somewhere. If you happen to have the same one, you know, this is ready to go as is. The STL will be available on fpfdesigns.com, just like all the designs we do on this channel. And it's probably a great time to mention, if this is your first time here, I do a new video every single Friday. So if you're into functional printing, into engineering, instead of just doing like minifigs and multicolored benchies, this channel is for you. This is for you guys. There's plenty of channels out there where it's just people painting minifigs. It's not my thing. I'm much more into the engineering side of it and doing functional stuff like this. So if you're into that too, check out some of my other videos. And if you really enjoyed this, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Guys, if you do, I'll see you next Friday.